Okay, so here we are looking at after the Holocaust. I'm looking at the Far West in particular at this moment. I have to do this with each of the different uh, players, but I'm trying to figure out what my initial starting situation is going to be. Now, a lot of it's predetermined, but let me grab a calculator because you really need a calculator in this game in a lot of different ways. So, I have an initial labor pool of 30 people. I have 6 mechs assigned to the farm sector, and over here I have 4 more mechs that I could assign somewhere else. I see little reason not to throw them into the farm sector, so I'm just going to boost that to 10. The reason being, I only have to keep one of my sectors at Sector State 1 now. I don't have to pay consumer goods to any of the other sectors. This is important because it allows me to save more consumer goods for the other sectors. But now I've got 40 food production and nothing of anything else. I cheated. I've got to assign one laborer over to the transportation sector. So now I got 29 left. Now I look at my food table and I have 6 to 10 areas, which means I might suffer a 10% loss of food with a fair likelihood. It could get as bad as 20 or 30%. That would be terrible. Let's say I get only 80% of my food. Well, then essentially I'm figuring I've got 30 population. 30 is 80% of what? How do I do that? 30 divided by 0.8, I believe. So I'd need to produce 38 food to feel very safe. Well, I only got 39 here. I do have 11 in stock, however. Okay, so I'm probably okay producing only 30 food, which means I'm going to drop this down and I have 9 other labor to put elsewhere. Well, that 9 other labor, let me keep it here. I'll move them down as I go. That 9 other labor, well, what do I need? I need to produce a fuel every turn. Now, I only have 2 fuel sites. I'm allowed to have 3 people per fuel site at Sector State 1. But I definitely need 1. Over on metal, I have no absolute requirement for metal. I also only have 4 metal sites, which means if I drop that to Sector State 0, the most I can get is 4 guys in there, which is probably about where I want to go. Now, what I want to do is I want to build lots of mechs. I'm not expecting to be able to trade with anyone in the Far West. Some of the other players may come to some kind of agreement. But over here, I don't have a lot of choice. And for that, I need 1 metal for every 2 industrial. I have 8 labor left. If I had 4 workers here in the metal sector, I would need 8 industrial capacity to deal with that. Now, I can, of course, bite into my stock a little bit. But let's say I have 3 metal production instead. Then I'll need 6 over here. Well, that's not going to quite work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my metal I'm going to add 1 more labor. Sorry. What am I going to do? I'm going to add 1 more labor back into my pool. I'm going to only produce 2 metal, but I'm still going to have 6 laborers here, using all of these up. So now I've got 20 laborers and 10 mechs in my farm sector. only one laborer over here in my fuel sector, I could actually probably move him out of there. The reason being, I have pretty good stockpiles of food, and I'll move that into there, or of fuel. I still have a little bit of play in the system, though. Is that good? Is that bad? Should I pump things up a little bit more? Well, I don't feel like I have much opportunity to do so. Quite simply, if I counted on maybe moving 2 more people out of somewhere, where would they come from? They would come from the metal sector. Then I'd be breaking completely even. There are times when it seems worthwhile to shift some population around. At this point, I think this is actually where I want to go. So that's going to be my starting place for the far west. It's a little bit conservative. Probably too conservative. All right. I'm going to say it's too conservative. What were we saying? 39 food is what is my worst case scenario. I have 30, 41. I'm going to take 1 food laborer out, and I'm going to take 1 metal laborer out, and I'm going to pump this up. And that's going to give me 8 laborers here, no mechs. Am I allowed that many? I am allowed that many even if I drop to sector state 0. I'll have to change that fairly soon. And that means my capacity at the start of the game is also 8. You don't get to set your capacity after the start of the game, and getting your mechs kick-started is kind of important. I think playing too cautiously is how I end up being in a situation where I just cannot even make it in the 10 turns. All right, well, that's a quick view of the kind of thinking I'm going to be playing on every single player. And then we'll play a little bit through the activities on the turn and see how it all plays out. But for the most part, I'm not going to be able to go through a step-by-step of every turn. It's just not that interesting. It's all bookkeeping. I'll just report on what the actions are. But no fear, this first turn I will look in detail at least one player's die rolls and actions and choices throughout the... Okay, well, if we thought the far west was kind of tricky to do, the south wasn't so bad, because they have a good stockpile of fuel for one thing. Now, fuel is the least needed of all things, but they pumped a bunch of labor into their one mine. Now, they're one of the people who might want to expand, just because only one metal source isn't going to do it for them. Unfortunately, there's almost nothing near them. They've got to walk 2 areas to get to a metal source here near Atlanta. And I don't know where else they're going to find one. They've got this one, and there's just nothing else here, which means they almost are required to trade. They're hoping they can find a deal because they have the most fuel by far in the country. They're hoping to be able to specialize in fuel and get deals with others. Other people need fuel. They've got a semi-monopoly on it, but they really, really need metal. They're probably going to be able to work out some good deals. However, they may need to focus a little bit on trying to reach here, get the additional plant and the additional metal. Problem? Well, the Midwest or the Northeast is closer to that. And this is a rich little site, a rich little area with a lot of valuable stuff in it. People may not need to expand, but that's tasty to everyone with a fuel and a metal site. Let's see, fuel, we're only at 3 sites. Here we've got 7 Northeastern fuel, so they're a little less in need of that, but they're low on metal with only 2. So there's a high desire for that space. Whether or not we're going to get there, I don't know. But the Northeast, really, I mean, we see capacities here 6 when I balance things out, and these are all doing the same kind of strategy. Make sure I've got enough metal. Here we've got a capacity of 6, a 6 here as well. So the biggest capacity for industry right now is in the far west. Now let's look at what we do. We're going to produce food. All right, I'm going to do the production for the far west across the board because we've been kind of watching them. And in order to do this, I need to find a pencil. There's one. All right. So producing food is the... Uh-oh. Let's place. Crap. Well, that didn't work out. So what I do is I look at, and there's my calculator. My base food production, which is going to be 19 plus 10 mechs, is 29. And now we're a 6 to 10 area. There's actually an advantage to getting down to this for a number of reasons, including volatility. It might actually allow you to win the game. I roll an 8, which is a good roll. I get my 29 food. So I do 2 things here. One, I find the Far West's chart, and I write that they get 29 food, and I mark that down on their output. That's not enough to feed all their people, but it's close. I'll be eating 1 food off my stock. Now, the others are kind of automatic. Fuel, for example, I produce no fuel. Metal, I produce 2 metal. So I write that down. Okay. Secondary production, I'm going to take care of all of this as well, and then go on to the others, and I'll tell you how their results kind of wind up, but not go through them in detail. So now I do all my secondary, right? Well, I want to produce mechs, and I have not marked my output yet. I have 2 output there, none over there. So I want to produce mechs. I want to produce as many as I can. I've got a capacity of 8. So if I convert 2, 4, my utilization is 8. So it takes 2 industrial points and 4 metal points to make 8 mech points. And now I've got 8 mechs over here. Did I not assign these? Oh, shit. Well, I think I only started out with 6, not 10. So I think I did assign them. Far West, 6 mech and farms. Allocatable 4. Yeah, I just didn't move this down. And I have my labor there. I'm pretty sure I did that with everyone. So I've produced, I said 8 mechs. I'm going to mark them down here because I'm allowed to trade them. I don't have to allocate them right away. I probably want them for my own economy, but it's possible that I have some additional fuel. I'm only using 7 areas, 7 times 20. So I have 60 movement points of fuel to use. I can't sail around, but I think I'm allowed to trace through uncontrolled areas. I'll have to look that up because if not, I mean, basically my only trade route would be through the southwest if I ever hook these up, if that's not the case. So anyway, what did we do? We used 8 industrial points. We're not going to build any military or anything, so we'll be going to the trade round after I do everybody else's production. Okay, now because everybody was being a little risky with their initial starting, everybody ended up low on food. They've got enough to feed themselves. It's just they're going to be eating into their stockpiles. that's a problem. But the first couple turns, you've got to get your economy jump-started. And being conservative here is bad. Later in the game, you want to be. A couple of people actually got bad food results. What do we have? 32, 32, 29. So these guys are like 3 food low. The others are each 1 off. Basically, the 2 got poor results that gave them only 90%, I think. All right. Now we're in the consumption round, and the first thing that happens is, oh, look, nobody's going to trade at this point. Nobody's got a real compelling reason to do so. The Far West has maybe the best reason, which is they have a lot of mechs. They might be able to get something really cool off of their mechs, but they can also just pump them into their own economy, and it's easier than trading for them at this point. There's some long-term structural issues, especially say with the Southwest, where not only do they have this metal problem, where they only have 1 site. So at Sector State 1, I can have 3 laborers in there, and then I can pump 1 mech in there. And then each additional level of Sector State, each additional point of consumer goods I feed to the people, they get 1 more mech they can run. That's just not an acceptable return as far as I'm concerned. Whereas over in other areas, we have a reduced amount of fuel, but fuel's not that important. I mean, this is why you want to play with the fertilizer rules. Fuel is not that useful. So the problem that the South is going to have is, first of all, not that much metal, and metal's more valuable in this game in general, unless you go military. And maybe that's the only way to get that to work. But also their industrial sites, they only have 4 of these. That means Sector State 1 and above, they can only put 12 laborers in. Okay? And at Sector State 1, 4 mechs. That puts a hard limit. 16 is what you're going to have for your industrialization capability. So they're not going to be able to build mechs either. They really need to get the advantage. They need to be able to leverage their sectors to trade with other people. They have the fuel to spend on the trading, at least potentially. However, they've got to get mechs into their farms, etc., and be producing enough foodstuffs to be able to trade with other people. They're in a really, really rough position. It's built in that way into the game. And yeah, if you threaten military action, you can probably get something out of it. So, but it's hard for them to build a military too. Harder than other people, perhaps, without their metal. So, let's go to the consumption. So the first thing we do here is, well, it says expend food, but what we didn't do yet is expend the fuel point that we have to, and that's kind of included in everything. So we'll spend 1 fuel there. Now, none of that counts into here. Now we go and we expend food. How many laborers do we have? Well, we only have 30 here in the Far West. However, we have only 29 food, which means we have to cut into our stockpiles. All right. So we spent a fuel, we spent a food. What else do we need? We need to spend consumer points for our employed labor. Let's see how many we have to spend. We don't want to spend more than we have to. Well, we sure the hell don't need to spend for the truckers. They don't need any. And that's going to drop our social state down to 0. The farm sector, we do need to spend 1 for that. Fuel sector, no. Over here, nah. We've got room for more. So we're still at 1. Over here, we have 8 sites and 8 laborers. If I don't spend 1 in the industrial sector, I won't be able to grow my industry. So I'm going to have to spend 2. So I'll write that down over here. And now we go to the labor allocation. Well, how many people did we just shaft? That's the problem. 1. Only 3 laborers, and there's 5 consumer points left. That's troubling. It's going to be the strike table. 3 laborers go into 5. That's going to be more than 1. So on a 4, 5, or 6, I got problems. And I got problems. Now, my choices are to either unemploy my laborers or give them what they want. And that's 1, 2 that I have to give. I don't have to give anything here because there are no laborers there. And that sector state should still be 0. So, there go 2 more of these. And these sector states go up back to 1. It wasn't too terrible. All right. And that was 2 more spent here. And now we calculate the tax base, just adding these. 34, 35, 41, 45. Now I got to spend for everyone else. And I haven't yet allocated those excess mechs that I built. That I can kind of do at will. Just have to put them somewhere. I haven't traded them. So I can kind of do it in my head in bookkeeping. It's easier if you allow people not to have to assign them and do all this pre-planning when there's really nothing that affects it at that point. Before I roll the dice for the taxes, though, I kind of have to look at how much is going to go into industry, or if any is going to go into there, or if it's all just going to go into the farm sector. I'll figure out everybody else's expenditures, though, and whether or not they get away with anything. I'll come back and talk to you about that. Well, one of the problems of doing this solo is I have too many papers to juggle, and I ended up adding the consumer points and labor allocation to the Midwest instead of to the Far West. So I've corrected that. They're only at 43. Remember, they have a smaller population base, so they're making less, but they have that higher industrial capacity than anyone else, which increases their income a little. I did check before the last video, actually, about the trade situation, and no, you can't trade unless it's through another player's territory. So these are, kind of badlands filled with outlaws and stuff until somebody gets control of them. That's a real incentive for the Far West to get hooked up with the rest of the players. It does not do them much good. They can always spend more fuel, and the Southwest certainly could produce that to trade, but in the long run, it may be worth adding some territory, although there are penalties to adding territory, I'm telling you. It's not a good idea. It uses cash, which is no big deal, but it uses transportation points, and that's the biggest cost. And it also, your production capacity doesn't increase in any way with that addition. You get more people, but your mechanization percentage doesn't increase. Those more people need just as much food as they can produce. So you get a bigger economy, but it's one that requires additional transportation, possibly additional fuel for that transportation. And I'm trying to remember the other reason why it's a bad idea. More consumer points to boost yourself to a level. You don't get any help in producing those. The only case where it's a help is, look, if you've got your economy entirely mechanized to the maximum that it can be at your sector state, or to the maximum that you can afford to, and that does happen at some point in the game, then having a larger economy means you can have more mechs producing, and you can get a better return on your investment. But the problem is those extra mechs producing tend to be on the one-for-one basis. One mech over in the farm sector for each additional person. So you're producing more food, there's no question, than you need now. So you have more labor you can reallocate somewhere else. And you could Also have them over in the industrial up to your site size. I don't know. It may work to help spur the economy. I know that a larger economy tended not to work well, though. Just because the cost for those consumer points. So you come out ahead in food when you do this because you can put more mechs in the farm. That becomes a limitation. But the extra consumer points, well, they cost a lot of resources. 2, 3, 4 resources for 5 points. That's your big deal. It's resources to points. That's always your tie-off. So basically, even if you got your food at the 2 times level, the extra consumer points that you need for those users could be an expense. Now, not at Sector State 1, but once you want to go to Sector State 2, the bigger you are, the harder it is to make that jump, I've found. The harder it is to get slack off the other players. We'll see. I think people are going to expand just because the Far West does want to be in the trading sphere with the Southwest. All right, back to figuring out everybody else. So I may have not optimized as much as possible here. I ended up paying consumer points everywhere for the industrial sector. And I don't necessarily need that. I could move workers out of the farm sector into the industrial sector and dump all the mechs into the farm sector. I chose not to do that for a couple of reasons, one of which is eventually I am going to want to mechanize the industrial sector. So I put my mechs, some of them, into there to take some of the slack up. The advantage to doing that at this point is it costs less to transfer people because I can transfer people for free out of the farm sector into the industrial, but then when I need to move them back to the farm sector because I've got too many mechs on the board, then I start running into a problem there. So I don't want to move all my people out of the farm sector too early. That's just my thinking. I don't know. Eventually I'm going to need to do it. It was probably a screw up. The hell with that. So now the next thing we go to is this military political round. Now, political contest and secret cash allocation. This is where you place those plebiscites. Something I forgot to tell you, I think, during the rules, which is you can't do that unless you have social state 1, which is you've spent a point on every sector. I did not do that with anyone, so nobody's going to expand yet. It's something you want to do eventually, but expending consumer points to be able to do that is the bigger expense rather than the cash. None of the military stuff, the plebiscites, none of that's going to happen. So we go to the finance round. Political disassociation. Nobody's got starving or unemployed people. Stockpile and labor reallocation. All right, let's go over. Okay, so here's where it gets tricky because we have to figure out what our tax base is going to be. But let's go over and do the stockpiling for the Far West. And their stockpile is, I've got no extra food, I've got no extra output in fuel, and none in metal. I do not have to stockpile anything. I've allocated however, my mechs. And I split them 4 and 4 for him. Now, I gotta worry about... shit. I gotta worry about what kind of taxation and how much industrial capacity I'm going to have. Now, to figure that all out, I got to worry about how much metal I'm producing. Uh-oh. Here's somebody who's got a problem. I may need mechs here. Because his industrial production is at 6. And that's what he's got here. So, instead of 2 mechs here, I'm going to pump them down and drop them into there. I've got the sector state for it. I don't think anybody else has that real problem where they can't allocate people into the metal sector. But there is a problem in that allocating people to the metal sector is going to cost them cash to do. All right, well, we'll go to the far west and see what we get here, because it's very easy to screw this thing up. And if you screw it up in the first couple turns, you're not going to make it. I mean, and it's almost invariable because it's just so easy to screw up. All right. So, what I'm worried about here is how my taxes are going to go. And I have to figure out, in order to figure out where I want my people, what my tax base and my tax rate are. And I don't know why I didn't add these up. This is for the Southwest, but 32, 35, 45 is his tax base. Okay, over here I have a tax base of 43. Now, if I tax at 10%, I'm going to get $4. And I'm likely going to get at least a plus 10% on my capacity. My current capacity is 8. I want to shoot that up to 12. That's more than 10%. But if I'm pulling $4 in and gaining 0.8 or 1, then I only have to buy 3 investment, which is going to cost me $6. So I'm at a net of -2 on the 10% column. All right, let's look at the 20% column. Well, here I'm starting to look at, I don't know if I'm going to grow for sure. But if I assume that I'm going to grow, well, then I can get away with the same odds, but I have $8, so I'm at +2. Riskier maneuver here. Here, I can almost assure myself I'm not going to grow, but I'm getting 30% of 43, which sounds like a near a cutoff. Wait, I said 30%. 43 times 0.3. I'll be getting $13 in cash. But I'll need to grow 4 spaces, and that'll cost me $10. So I'm up like 3 on that. That sounds better than this, but if I roll terribly, I'll lose some of that production. What if I go over here and say I'm going to lose 20% of my production? 20% of 8 is 1.6. Then I'm at -2. So I've got to grow 6, which means I'll be paying $20 for that. All right. Well, unfortunately, I don't have that kind of money, so I can't tax at that level because I have to do my industrial investment first. So a high tax rate is out of the question. I kind of like assuming no law. This will not lose me money, the 20% rate. That seems a safe rate. Money is not that big a deal. So 20% of 43 is going to be $9. And if I grow 4, that costs me 10. That's only going to cost me $1. So I'm going to pay $10, which I have, to buy myself 4 capacity increase. Now I could go higher than that by moving labor over, and that's another option here. Oh, 100% utilization does something for you. I better look that up. So 100% utilization gives you a boost in capacity immediately. So everybody did that, and if you don't do that on the first turn, you've probably screwed something up. So everybody's up 1 capacity for that. And that happens actually earlier, if it matters. You know, it's all a bookkeeping exercise, really. So I still like my idea of going up 4. Why? Well, I can shift a worker over there too. What the hell? how much of that capacity could I use? Ooh, there's a problem. I only have 2 laborers here, so I'm going to have to shift some workers into here. The most I can produce is 4. That's 8 on max. Yeah, you're starting to see where the headache comes. Consumer points take a metal point too. And I'm going to need consumer points very shortly. Maybe not this next turn, but my look at this is I'm limited by my metal production. Now, I'm at Sector State 1, so I can throw a lot more workers into there. So yeah, let's go with the $10 into investment. And that's going to give me 4 capacity increase. So I'm up to 13. Play with the levers, see what comes out, right? And it's never good, because unless you fully figure it. All right, so I was deciding that with that, I wanted to increase my, to make sure I'm doing this in the right order. Taxation and corruption. I didn't explain corruption chits at all. You can buy these suckers at this point, and you can play them on other people. Now, corruption chits are listed here as to their effect. I don't remember how much they cost, though. They're listed somewhere as well. Where you buy them. I think they may be the investment costs, but I'm not sure. Let me check. It's the same progression, except you can only buy up to 5. Nobody's going to play corruption chits on anyone else. You know, I'm just counting, at least with the Far West, on not buying them. But usually it's worth buying a $1 corruption chit to get a stockpile of them. They perform a nice threat. All right, what the hell? Let's buy one. The way they work is you declare them against someone. And you put a pile of corruption chits against that person, and they're allowed then, this is all done secretly at first, but then they're allowed to use their stash of corruption chits to counter on a 1-for-1 basis any that you play. And the effect there is to reduce the total tax revenue. Anyway, where are we here? We wanted a tax rate of 20%. Did we want 30%? I don't know. And we don't really need that increase. Let's go with a 30% tax rate. No, 20% was good. 20% get us $9. That was what we were counting on. Let's do that. That'll get us a higher growth, which we need, I think. All right. 20% tax rate. We say the raw revenue was 9 from that. 8.6 here. Nobody's going to play corruption on this first turn. And so we end up with a net tax revenue of $9, which gets us a $10 bill. And there we spent $1 on our investment. You know, the government's losing money, but that's okay. However, we're on the 30% chart. We may get, or 20% chart, we may get more growth. We get an 8, which means no additional growth. I'll continue working through this because, fuck, I forgot this. I forgot the regular label reallocation, which I needed to do beforehand. So, I needed to get more people here. I was counting on, I don't know what. I have some stock, but let's ignore that for now. I was counting on my current capacity is 13. I was counting how much? How did it get that fucking high? My investment. So with my investment, I knew I was getting that. If I was at 14, well, here's one of the magic things. If I produce consumer points, I use less metal per cash. So, of course, I also use fuel. So if I'm at 13 points, that would be one set of consumer points. That's 5 metal, 6 metal I'd need. Which means I'd need to move 4 labor into place. All right, let's do it. 4 labor, I'm able to do that. I'm able to go up to 12 actually. And those 4 labor come off here. Now my food supply is going to be 15, 25, 29. I'm still losing food, but I have a stockpile of 10. I just moved, how much labor? I think 4. So I believe I have to pay $4 for that. And I'll transfer that. And that works okay there. I think it's $1 per labor between sectors. Now, our capacity is 13. At this point, I'm allowed a free labor reallocation situation where I have 8, 12. I need 1 more labor. I'll take another farmer. I get this guy for free, though, to move over here. I don't have to pay him during the labor reallocation. The other one I had to do before I rolled my tax effect. All right, on to everyone else's tax effects. Well, the Northeast has problems. As I'm looking at the situation, trying to figure out my taxes, and it's real easy to make errors here. I spent money on something. I get that money back. I can't put more labor into my metal market. That means the most capacity I really have is 6. So I'm going to have to shift some labor out of here because, well, I have a stock, so I can produce 3. So call it 4, 7. I'm okay with this capacity, but I got to get 2 guys out of there. Where the hell are they going to go? They can't go into metal. One of them, I'll move over to fuel to actually produce some. And I'll move the other one over to food. Not really what I wanted to do. It means I'm going to fall behind in the mechanization market. I don't need my capacity to go up, which means I can probably put a high tax rate and pay a low investment to try to keep it at 7. Just looking over the comments to the game, fit this into what I'm discussing right now, which is that higher tax rate, I think a 40% rate, where I was guaranteed no worse than a negative 30%. And then I can buy that off. That would be 2 points down, so the investment for that is fairly low. And someone, I think, is using that kind of idea that you can get a nice, slow, steady, continuous growth that's quite good, actually, and a lot of income in. And therefore, this is some kind of Marxist theory here. 1, you don't get the tremendous rates of growth if you start doing that. And 2, you're very, very susceptible to corruption shits. So, if you can imagine a Marxist government operating without corruption or without anybody playing corruption shits, in most games of this, people don't really throw them around too much unless somebody's in the lead. But the truth of the matter is, the problem with a command economy and a bureaucracy is that they are corrupt. It's that they're more sensitive to that kind of corruption, actually. So, in one sense, you can say, okay, well, in a perfect world. Yeah, in a perfect world, to tell you the truth, capitalism wouldn't be necessary. All right. Anyway, now we're moving back to problems for our Western folk. Let me get I've got the plug in, and I totally do not need it. All right, so the final thing in the turn is record passage of time, but no, it's depreciation and shrinkage. We've handled the labor equalization. And, the Northeast, if they thought they could get metal from other people, would have been okay. But they don't think the trading environment is rich enough right now to allow that. They think that people are going to be cranking their metal out to produce mechs. There comes a point in the game where people have enough mechs, but that ain't here by a long shot. So it's going to be really tough when people are still interested in producing mechs in as large a quantity as they can, and getting their industrial sector as high as they can. It's really unlikely that you're going to be able to say, hey, I'll trade you a fuel, which you only need maybe one or two of at this point in the game, for metal, which is really your limiting factor probably. That and industrial capacity, depending on where you are. So, for example, the metal sector here could take a lot more labor. He could pump more people through. Anyway, let's go to the depreciation, and we do this in two things. First, working mechs. How many mechs do we have that are allocated and can work here? And that's 14. I've got exactly the same amount as my laborers, which is what I'm allowed. 18 working mechs. So that means I'll be rolling for a 4 here. And I don't get one, so I'm good. Then any excess mechs? No. Transport, I do have under 10 transport, but more than 5. So that's a 2. I get a 2. That means I'm in danger. I lose one of my transports. There goes my reserve. I got to build another one now. I can't, or else I'm in danger next turn of running out of transport and starting to lose areas. I also need one if I ever want to do any trading. You need to have them in reserve. So there's an extra cost I wasn't counting on. Now I go over to the shrinkage, the food. I have 10 food in stock. That means it's a 4. Uh-oh. All right, I'm okay there. Consumer points, I only have 3 of those in stock. That's a 2. That's fine. And now metal and fuel. I have 5 fuel in stock. Okay, that's a problem. Nope. And only 1 metal in stock. And I'm counting on these, right? That's fine. If those decrease, just like, if the mechs decrease or anything else, everything's very finely balanced at this point. You start, you throw your economy into a spin if you get a bad roll on one of these. If you have excess, well, your economy's not burning at the full rate that it can. If you have too many excess reserve transportation or whatever, anything like that, it means that you've got resources that you don't really need. So, for example, this guy has 2 reserve transportation now. He might be able to cut a deal with the Far West, spend a fuel, and send a transport over there in exchange for something. But what? Not money. Money is largely worthless. Money, you can collect it. You can grab tons of it here. This is not a purely cash-driven economy anymore. It's very reliant on raw materials. So if you're not able to produce those raw materials when you need them, you've got serious problems with your potential. If you become reliant on trade, you had better be pretty sure that trade is going to stay there for you. Otherwise, your entire industry could collapse as someone else's starts to become a little stronger. Really, really ugly concepts here to keep in mind. The poor Southwest, right? And no one else ends up losing anything important. No mechs fell, nothing like that. That'll happen later, though. And it's devastating whenever it happens. It really is. The transportation one is a little bit more painful. One thing I forgot to mention, though, one of the options, and the Southwest probably wants to take this. If you look at your production chart, is you can build plants. They cost 2 metal and only 3 industry. One of the worst payoffs you can get, plus cash. But normally you're spending 1 metal and for 2 industry. This, or 1 for 3. This is your worst payoff, but it gets you more plant, and sometimes that's the only way. He's only got 4 sites. His labor's already at 11. He's getting close there. And the problem, though, well, you can't build a new metal site. So if your raw materials aren't there, that's your problem. And that 11, right now my production is going to be 3, 4. I can do 12. That's if I produce nothing but consumer points. And there's no market for that many consumer points. So unless I can find a source of metal, unless someone else's economy can get up to level 2, say, with big metal mines, where they're actually producing enough that it's all being used. If that happens, trade becomes really, really valuable. If the economies become strong enough that we're really talking about that. And if that happens, hey, maybe we'll start seeing military come into play or something. I don't know. Or at least plebiscites and the like. However, that's way too optimistic for my experience in this game. All right, this one's going up. And tomorrow, I guess we'll get a couple more turns in. This is going to take a while because I'm doing bookkeeping for 4 players. Nothing but, basically. So it's like, each turn of this is not too much different from doing a turn of Europa Universalis for me. Because there's so much, so little things to pay attention to and kind of imagine and look at that I kind of disassociate from the game. And it's just bookkeeping work.